Hello everyone, I'm back with a new video and today it is going to be interesting for the SST lovers as we are going to start the chapter from social studies which is from history, and the chapter is one and only the Delhi Sultanate. The Delhi Sultanate. In this chapter we are going to discuss many administration, political life and other political lives and social lives of the people in Delhi Sultanate. Then we are going to discuss some dynasties that took part in Delhi Sultanate and Timur's invasion. We will take a look at that also. Now we are going to take a glance look at what is inside this chapter. In this chapter, we are going to study the Delhi Sultanate, which has four parts of dynasties, which is the Slave Dynasty, the Kharji Dynasty, the Tughlaq Dynasty, and the Lodi and Sayyid Dynasty. In these both dynasties, these are same dynasties. The Sayyid and the Lodi dynasties are merged together. Let's take a glance look at the Slave Dynasty. The Slave Dynasty is the iconic aspects of this particular dynasty is the Qutub Minar and the Mughal invasions of Raja Sultan. Some iconic aspects of the Kharji dynasty are the campaigns in the Deccan and the economic reforms of the Alauddin Khaljis. Then we take a look at the aspects of the Tughlaq dynasty, which is Ibn Battuta's visit, the Tughlaq fort, and Timur's invasion with Muhammad bin Tughlaq's reforms. The Sayyid and the Lodis dynasty, the last dynasty, is going to show us the aspects of the first battle in Panipat and the Lodi gardens. So the timeline of these dynasties we have to know, which is from 1200 to 1300 CE is the Slave Dynasty. Then comes the Tughlaq Dynasty, which is from 1301 to 1350 CE, which is the Tughlaq Dynasty. Then we have taken a look at 1351 to 1400 CE, which is of the Timur's invasion. Then we have the Lodi Dynasty, which is from 1401 and onwards after it. So let's take a look at this chapter. So we have done the glance look of this whole chapter. Now we are going to study its key points which are in this whole chapter. So let's get started with the first thing, which is from the 12th century CE onwards, Delhi Sultanate gained appearance as a central city of kingdoms. It became the first capital of Tomra Rajputs. Now, in the previous videos, we have discussed that Rajputs, what they mean. Rajputs actually mean Rajputra, which is the son of a ruler. They were defeated by the Chauhans and the Ajmer in the middle of the same century. Along with being the capital, Delhi also flourished as a commercial state. Establishment of Turkish rule in India. As we read in the previous chapter, Muhammad Ghori left his trusted slave Qutbuddin Aibak, who laid the foundation of the slave dynasty and became the first Sultan of Delhi in 1206 CE. The establishment of Turkish rule was a watershed event in the history of India. Also, the Slave Dynasty, the dynasty is also referred as the Mamluk Dynasty, which actually means from an Arabic word, which means the slave. That's why in Hindi we say it Slave Dynasty. Qutbuddin Aibak. Here, what is Qutbuddin Aibak and who was it? So, from 1206 to 1210 CE, Qutbuddin Aibak established the Sultanate in Afghanistan and the northern parts of India, which came to known as the Delhi Sultanate, as we all know. He constructed the Kuwait ul Islam Mosque in the Delhi and Adhai Dinka Jhonpra in Ajmer. Now, as we all know, the Tomara Rajputs were defeated by the Chauhans of the Ajmer only. So he established there a Karchopra in Ajmer. He died in an accident he died in 1210 CE while playing Chogan. Chogan is a game, a kind of polo played while riding the horses. So was a game, and he died in that accident only. Qutbuddin Aibak initiated the construction of the Qutb Minar, but was unable to complete it. Iltutmish. Now we have read about Qutbuddin Aibak, and we also have learned that how he was died in the while playing an accident in 1210. So let's see who was Iltutmish. Iltutmish lived from 1210 to 1236 CE. Now he ruled at that point of time, and how he ruled? Let's see. Historians considered Iltutmish Qutbuddin Aibak's son-in-law. Now, he was not his son, he was his son-in-law. As the real consolator of Turkish conquests in North India, he ascended the throne in 1210 CE amid great also the great opposition from the Turkish nobility as well as the external revolts. In order to win the support of the nobles, he granted them territories and concentrated his efforts on straightening lines his empire and while recovering the lost territories. So what he did was to power himself and to get supporting from the nobles, he first gave his territories and then by very selfishness he took that territories back just to be supported by the nobles. He also strengthened the northwestern frontier of his empire to safeguard it against the Mongol invasions. Now, he also strengthened his northwestern empire and safeguard to Mongol invasions. Mongol invasions were also his belt. Let's take a look at who had also ruled over the all the dynasties and how it was like in the sequence and who actually was like gained power at that point of time. Let's take a look at the Slave Dynasty first. Slave Dynasty, which is from 1206 CE to 1290 CE, first was started by Qutbuddin Aibak. Then there was Iltutmish and his full name was Shamsuddin Iltutmish. Then it comes to Ruknuddin Firoz Shah. Then comes the Razia Sultan and Nasiruddin Muhammad, and then Ghiyasuddin Balban. Now let's take a look at the Kharji Dynasty. Kharji Dynasty was started with the Jalaluddin Firuz Khalji, and then Alauddin Khilji came, and Qutbuddin Mubarak Shah came at the last point of time. And this Khalji dynasty extended from 1290 CE till 1320 CE. Let's take a look over the Tughlaq dynasty. The Tughlaq dynasty started from 1320 CE to 1412 CE, and it was started by Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq and then was continued by several rulers who were Muhammad bin Tughlaq, Firoz Shah Tughlaq and Muhammad Shah Tughlaq. Then comes our second last dynasty, which is the Sayyid dynasty, and that continued from 1414 CE, 1414 CE till 1451 CE. And it was started by Khizr Khan and was continued by Mubarak Shah, Muhammad Shah and Alauddin Alam Shah. Next, the last dynasty, but not the least dynasty, which was started from 1451 CE to 1526 CE. Bahulul Lodi was the founder of this dynasty, and Sikandar Lodi and Ibrahim Lodi continued this dynasty till the end. Now let's take a look over in order to introduce efficiency of administration. Iltutmish organized his nobility into a select group of 40 nobles called the Chalisa or Chahalangiri. Then he take a group of very much nobles that helped him and supported him when he gave his territories, and they were known as the Chalisa or the Chahalagni. Then we have this group played a crucial role in the politics of the slave dynasty. Iltutmish's daughter Razia became the Sultan after his death, and Razia Sultan was his daughter. Then we have to come at the Nasruddin Muhammad from 1246 to 66 CE and Ghiyasuddin Balban from 1266 to 1287 CE. After Razia, her brother Nasruddin Muhammad came to the throne. He died in 1266 and was succeeded by Ghiyasuddin Balban, his prime minister and a former member of Chalisa group. So the Chalisa group was a group of many saints, you can say many nobles. When Balban ascended the throne in order to offset the opposition, he centralized all the power and authority in his own hands, not to give another people his properties and other things. He laid the foundation of a centralized government and asserted the need for noble origin and prestige of the monarchy. Also, he established an efficient spy system to keep himself very informed and to be ensured the loyalty of the people and towards their throne. He broke the power of the group of 40. Example, Jaha Langini. So he broke the power of him. Now we have not discussed about the Razia interlude. So let's discuss about that famous woman. Razia Sultan, the only Muslim woman ruler of Delhi, succeeded the Iltutmish. As we know, Iltutmish has a daughter her name was Razia only. Defining the gender based and orthodox cultural practices of her age, she put on male attire and appeared unveiled in the public. She succeeded in establishing law and order throughout the empire. Her rule marked the beginning of a power struggle between the Sultan and the Jahalangiri. The nobles were opposed to the rule by a female monarch and at the same time disappeared at a high position she granted her Ethiopian slave at Yakut. This led to a revolt against her. She was murdered as a part of the conspiracy of the nobles while she was on her way to reclaim her empire. So, as we have also read about the Razia, now this dynasty is finished, and now we are going to the Kharji Dynasty that extended from the 1290 CE to 1320 CE. Let's get started with it. So the Kharji dynasty was Balban died in 1287 CE. His successors proved to be weak and incompetent. In 1290 CE, a noble named Jalaluddin Khalji established the Khalji dynasty after killing the Balban's grandson, who was Tekutbag. Now, starting with the Jalaluddin Khalji, the founder of the Kharji Dynasty, the Jalaluddin Khalji suppressed the revolts of the Balban's successors and the overcome of the external threat of the Mongols. His great brief rule over a period of 6 years was based on the willing support of the village and the people of village and in the process of governance and tolerance towards the religious communities. Now, after he died, it comes the Alauddin Khilji. Jalaluddin Khilji was murdered and succeeded by the nephew who was Alauddin Khilji. Alauddin Khilji was an ambitious young man who established a vast empire in India by conquering Gujarat and Ranthambore, Chittor, Malwa, and Jalore of Rajasthan. He was the first Delhi Sultan to cross the Vindhya region and acquire control of the Deccan. The fabulous wealth of the Deccan drew him to the south also. Eventually, the charge of all southern campaigns was entrusted to Malik Kafur. By 13 and 13 CE, the Yadavas of Devagiri, the Kakityas of Varangal, and the Hoysalas of the Dwasamundra and the Pandyas of the Malabar and Mysore accepted Alauddin's overlordship. Then, as we have completed the Alauddin dynasty and all we have completed the Kharji dynasty, now we are going to be forward with the Tughlaq dynasty. The Tughlaq dynasty was started with Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq. He was he was born in 1320 till 1324 CE. Not born, but he started his rule at that point of time. Alauddin Khalji's death in 1316 CE was followed by a period of political unrest. The last Khalji ruler, Khusro Khan, was killed by Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq, who founded the Tughlaq dynasty in 1320 CE. An able statesman and administrator, he advocated a policy of tolerance instead of harsh punishments. He carried out many works of public utility. Also, he was succeeded by his son, who was Muhammad bin Tughlaq, and by 1324 CE. Let's take a look at Muhammad bin Tughlaq. He was started his dynasty in 1324 CE till 1351 CE. Muhammad bin Tughlaq is remembered as one of the most learned and accomplished scholars of his time. He was well versed in Sanskrit, Arabic, Persian, as well as well read in religion and philosophy, science, literatures. His empire included southern states, Odisha, Bengal, and the Deccan also. And so he was the second one to power his rule at the Deccan with the Tughlaq dynasty. Let's take a look at the Ibn Battuta characterized the Muhammad bin Tughlaq as the humble man of the man who is the most inclined towards doing his work in just the right and just the very correct way. He undertook various types of experimental projects which, despite being innovative, failed since they lacked the prudence. And we have completed with the Muhammad bin Tughlaq dynasty. And now let's start with the Pharaohs Tughlaq. And he started his empire from 1351 CE to 1388 CE. Firoz Shah Tughlaq, who succeeded his cousin Muhammad bin Tughlaq, learned his lessons very well. He aimed as at consolidating his empire and hence took a number of measures aimed at reforming the administration. He also undertook many humanitarian measures of the banning inhuman punishments, setting up hospitals for the poor, and many doings like Ashoka did, and very much on so on. Firoz Shah Tughlaq introduced significant modifications in tax structures also. Firoz Shah founded the city of Firozabad or Firoz Shah Kotla in Delhi. His death in 1388 was followed by a series of rebellions which hastened the end of the Tughlaq rule. So now we have learned that the Tughlaq dynasty was ended by Firoz Shah Tughlaq in 1388. So, as the Tughlaq dynasty is also finished, so let's just take a look at the Sayyid dynasty, which was started in 1414 till 1451 CE. Before Timur left Delhi, he appointed Khizr Khan and his viceroy, who went to establish the Sayyid dynasty after defeating the Tughlaqs. Khizr Khan took over as Sultan of Delhi 1414. He ruled for several years and was succeeded by his son, who was Mubarak Shah in 1421. Yahya bin Ahmad Sirhindi's Tariq-e-Mubarak Shahi gives a detailed account of Mubarak Shah's region. Also, Mubarak Shah was succeeded by his nephew Muhammad Khan, who ruled as Sultan Muhammad Shah. After his death, he succeeded by his son, who was the last ruler of this dynasty, who was the Alauddin Alam Shah, and who actually abdicated the throne in 1451. Lodi dynasty was started from 1451 when the Sayyid dynasty had its end. From 1451, it continued its way till 1526 and decline of the Sultanate also. So Lodi dynasty is the last dynasty of the Sultanate. Bahlul Lodi, then the governor of Sirhind, Punjab, became the new Sultan of Delhi. The Lodi dynasty was the first dynasty of Afghan rulers that came to power during the Sultanate period. Bahlul was succeeded by his son Sikandar Lodi in 1489 CE. He laid the foundation of city of Agra in 1503 CE. He was succeeded also by his son, which was Ibrahim Lodi. When let me remember the chart at that point of time. It was succeeded by his son in 1517 CE. Let's take a look at the last point of Sultanate. The first Battle of Panipat, which was held in 1526 CE, saw Ibrahim Lodi's defeat at hands of Babur and finally the fatal blow and existence of the Delhi Sultanate. Delhi Sultanate administration. The Sultanate was the central and the most significant person in the Sultanate. And the Sultan was actually known as the central and the most significant person in the Sultanate. He defeated the empire against external attacks and maintained law and order in their powers. He also was the commander-in-chief of the army as well as the chief justice of the empire. Who were nobles now? Nobles, they occupied the civilian and the military positions in the Sultanate and worked closely with the Sultan. In order of rank, the Khans were the highest, followed by the Maliks and the Amirs. The salary of the nobles were arranged from the revenue signs and assigned on them. According to the ICTA system, the land resources of the Sultanate were divided and given to the nobles of levy of cash for their services. Iqtadars collected tax from the farmers in villages using the same income to maintain the army. In order to meet the requirements of the royal palace, the karkhans or workshops headed by the maliks were set up wherein various items such as clothes, paintings, and other articles were produced. At times, military goods were also produced in workshops. Officials of the Sultanate's court, the Sultan's court actually was composed of officials who were responsible for effective functioning of the Sultanate. And we have many types of officials, and we have different types of duties of them. Army. Now, army is a very significant component of the Sultanate. The army consisted of infantry or foot soldiers, cavalry or horse soldiers, and archers and elephants also. Horses of good quality were of utmost importance, and therefore they were imported from Arabia. Allotted Kharji maintains a detailed description of each soldier known as Chehra and branded each horse to each soldier in his army known as Dug. Land revenue was collected in cash during his reign. Hence, soldiers were also paid in cash. Economic and social life of the Sultanate. The Sultan depended on regular income from the land in order to pay officials, maintain the army, and to reconstruct building various types of kinds of taxes such as kharaj and all the land taxes also from the horse tax were used to extract revenue. All the administrative posts in the Sultanate were reserved from the nobles who constituted the ruling power of the society. The distinctions of the caste system permeated all the religions. Slave dynasty were Slaves were bought and sold in huge numbers in the market. The peasants lived in conditions of abject poverty. They were subjected to oppression from the revenue officials and their demands for heavy taxes. Now, with this topic of economic and social life of the Sultanate, we have completed the whole chapter. And now we are not going to do its question answers, but still we are going to read the administrative divisions of the Sultanate. The administration divisions were the provinces called the Bas were actually divided into sheikhs, paraganas, and a village. First, the provinces called the Subas were officials headed by the governor or the Mufti. The Sheikhs were headed by the Shikdar. The Paraganas were headed by an Amil. And the village was headed by the landowners known as the Khuts and the Muqaddams, and the village accountant of or Patwari maintained records of the land, crops, and taxes to be paid. So that was only in this chapter. Till then, everyone stay home and stay safe and eat healthy food. Bye bye.